My name is Chris Sanderson, and I am co-founder at the Future Laboratory. We're based in London, and as a global trends intelligent expert, the Future Laboratory has been commissioned by G42 to research and to analyze and to deliver a new report that looks very specifically into how AI is going to unlock future potential in sport. And in that, we start to redefine some of the critical pillars of sport, including strategy, talent scouting, fan engagement, and athlete health and performance. Now, according to the Global Insights division of Global Market Insights, the AI in sport market is currently valued at US dollars 1.2 billion in 2024, and is going to grow to 4.7 US dollars by 2034. Now, one of the key findings for us in this report is how AI is a massive leveler up of the industry. So as an example, in the UK, we've seen how football clubs like Brentford and Brighton have used AI-driven scouting to rise into the Premier League on budgets that previously would only have been available to top-tier football clubs. And this access of budgets far below their elite competitors, and the change in accessibility is one of the key advantages that we see in AI in sport. And in fact, and you'll hear from him shortly, as Alex Brunori from G42 has told us, it doesn't change much for the top of the pyramid, but it changes massively for the mid-level. Yet, the report has also identified that there's a real strategy barrier to the acceptance of AI in sport, and across other markets as well. In fact, the MIT Media Lab from the US, in a report that they've conducted called AI Divide, has reported that 95% of pilot schemes that use AI and look into the opportunities of AI actually fail. Not due to the technology, but due to poor strategy and operational acceptance. Now, we haven't got time to delve into the G42 report in depth, but what I'd like to do is to welcome in a few minutes some experts who are really going to help us to unpack some of the key findings. But before I do that, I just want to focus on three of the key areas that this report is highlighting. And the first is around the critical area for sport performance, of course, around health and athlete performance. Now, from a focus on better data in female sport performance to AI coaches and mentors, from the rise of real-time data to agentic AI, the way athletes monitor, manage, and start to optimize their regimes is being revolutionized. Indeed, one of the key areas or battlegrounds for sports performance, if you like, that we've seen come to the fore is that of rest and recovery. And from AI-enabled vests that we're seeing with the Dallas Cowboys in the US, to sweat-analyzing patches coming from Point Fit in Hong Kong, rest and recovery is becoming as measurable as performance itself. And in fact, world cycling coach Kevin Poulton recently told us, as a coach, it's all about rest and recovery. And that's the first thing I look at now with the data. And tools like Anna don't just log training, they track emotional cues and stressors. At the LA Rams in the US, for example, NFL official Sarah Bailey, who's overseen that one of the particular leagues there, has been able to record the lowest injury rates for 3 years running, and for that she cites AI-assisted prevention tools. So in terms of health, AI is reframing success as a collective, not just an individual goal. And tools that help us to aggregate data and also to optimize team well-being and selection are creating alignment between personal longevity and squad performance. Now, as we'll shortly discuss with one of our other experts, Dawn Barnable, the founder of Mettleset Media, we're seeing new female frontiers in sport. Historically, only 6% of sports research has focused on women, but that is set to change. Next up is the future of fan engagement, and increasingly it looks less like ESPN and more like Spotify, with fans increasingly expected to be able to choose their own camera angles, their own commentary voices, and to see real-time stats tailored to their own personal preferences. We're anticipating the growth of AI-powered co-creation. From UAE Team Emirates, for example, we saw the fan-designed helmets to Puma's AI kit generators. Generative AI is empowering fans as designers. And of course, we're all going to get ready for the stadiums that feel. Think, of course, of the Sphere and the new Mohammed bin Salman Stadium that is pioneering immersive environments with sensory overlays that turn stadiums into emotional amplifiers. And then third, the report looks at operational transformation. Because while 88% of sports executives are optimistic about AI adoption, only a third have a clear implementation strategy. But this is set to change. And we're seeing the move towards real-time insights across sports categories. But as we heard from the coach of the World Tour Cycling organization, Kevin Poulton, there's increasingly the demand for in-race data feeds to adjust tactics live. And that, of course, is already causing controversy within the sporting world. But get ready for next-generation VR training, from baseball's Blast Motion and Win Reality partnerships to Apollo Sports VR football environments. We're seeing how immersive training ecosystems are beginning to scale up. Meta and Oakley, for example, developing AI smart glasses for on-field use. And agentic AI is emerging as team members that simulate referees, can read FIFA compliance rules, or even channel legendary managers for that last-minute bit of inspiration. Now, already a $41.3 billion US projected market, agentic-based AI could redefine how tactics are modeled and tested. Well, to help me unpack these insights further, it's with great pleasure that I'd like to be joined on stage now by our panelists. So please welcome Giacomo Ziani, who is the Senior Vice President of Corporate Marketing and Communications at G42, Dawn Barnable, the founder of the Mettleset Media, and Alex Brunori, who is the Vice President for Brand and Brand Experience at G42. I shall take my seat alongside you. Thank you all very much indeed for joining me today. Giacomo, I'm going to turn to you first to kick things off. And can I ask you, why this report for G42? Why now? And why do you think we're seeing such a rapid development of AI in sport?
Thank you, Chris, and good afternoon, everyone. Well, look, G42 has been involved in sports since its very early days. In 2020, we signed our first partnership with UAE Team Emirates, and then since then, we started expanding our portfolio with partnership with Mercedes Formula One team, UAE Team ADQ, and others. And I think for an AI vendors, AI technology company like us, sports offers really the perfect playground where to develop and test our capabilities and our technologies. You operate in extreme conditions, extreme environments, and also extreme human performance.
And extreme humans.
Exactly that. And so it's really a great opportunity for us to develop technologies that operate at the top and edge of performance, and then eventually find ways to distribute it to larger audiences.
So it's a space to watch.
Absolutely, and then with this report, what we're trying to do is to establish really a gold standard for sports, for AI applications in sport, year on year, and offer really a reference to stakeholders in the sports domain to better understand how the technology is evolving in this space.
Fantastic. Dawn, let's come to you. Tell us a little bit about Mettleset Media, but also I understand that you're an individual who's very embedded personally in sport. I'm interested to know what your initial thoughts are when you hear about the idea of AI in sport.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me today. It was really great to be able to contribute my opinions and thoughts from working in the women's sports space. Sorry. So the Mettleset is one of the first and only sports media platforms in the Middle East to put women in sport first. And it was born Out of many years of working in sports communications and seeing a real opportunity when it came to covering women's sports stories. For many, many years, and still to this day, many sports stories are told from the male lens. So women's sports media coverage has grown from about 4% in recent years to about 15%,
right.
but that still lags, and that's where we come in. We say we're unlocking the power of women in sports. We're just about to launch our online magazine. We've got a podcast, we speak to hundreds of athletes, and we also focus on storytelling on social media as well. And behind the scenes, there's a lot of advocacy work. Initially, when I hear AI in sports, I bristle a bit because I think there's a lot of questions around it. But the more I learn, particularly from an athlete, as an athlete myself, but also looking at the wider implications, not just for women's sports, but for the women's sports ecosystem in terms of engaging women in sport, women who are sport fans, there's so much opportunity that we can unlock.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of the critical growth areas, isn't it? That we tend to think of technology and sport as being male-dominated areas, but I think we're all aware that the future is really often about female engagement and female involvement, and that's where we see the market move. I mean, Giacomo, if I can come to you and start to look at one of those key areas I outlined of the report, the focus on health and performance. You know, the way athletes monitor and manage and optimize their regimes is really being revolutionized by their engagement with AI. But how do you think this is maybe beginning to impact on the viewer experience?
The tracking of health and performance has become more and more multidimensional year over year. So we went from simply tracking, I don't know, your lap time and to start monitoring HRV or sleep regimes. But now we are moving to analyzing like biological data, for example, through genomic testing, as well as psychological data through agentic AI. And this is something that one of our companies, Analog, is currently doing, for example, with UAE Team Emirates. And obviously that helps offering that 360-degree picture on the state of the athlete, not just the physical state, but also the psychological readiness of an athlete to perform, which is extremely important nowadays.
Well, I'm going to come back to you, Dawn, before I turn to you, Alex, but I'm interested to understand or learn more from you about how you think a better understanding using technology of our data sets is going to help women in sport, both from a personal and a professional level. What's your view on the impact that AI can have in terms of bridging gaps in research that exists between men and women?
Absolutely. I think, you know, we started the Mettleset with a view to help increase women's sports coverage and look at that area in particular. But the more we dive into it, we see all of the other opportunities that within the sports ecosystem. Stadiums are developed for and by men and boys. And a big part of that is the research gap when it comes to women's health in particular, and how we can incorporate that into you know, the future and safeguarding and helping athletes train. I think, you know, a lot of people that I speak to many, many women all the time in all different levels of sports, and even now athletes are quite surprised to find that, you know, our data and protocols are based on men's data. So there's a lot of implications when it comes from a women's health point of view, training point of view, that can be really unlocked.
Yeah, I'm from London, you might have realized from my accent, and coming from a country that is leading the way in football, cricket and rugby, in women's sports, it's an absolute pleasure to see this focus on women's engagement in sport, but also how well, when they get the backing that they require, we're seeing our women's teams, you know, perform, how we're seeing them perform.
Absolutely. We were just recently a media partner to the Sports Industry Forum in Abu Dhabi, and Alexis Ohanian was speaking, and he really highlighted how he's building his women's sports teams as tech companies. So I think there is a massive opportunity for adoption of AI to build women's sports at all levels.
Well, let's focus, Alex, with you a little bit on this idea of experience, because with a title of the report being Unlocking the Potential of AI in Sport, we're undoubtedly talking about the fan experience as part of that and their brand engagement. And I'm really interested to hear from you how you think AI is transforming our experience of sport and what maybe some of those future possibilities are.
Thank you, Chris. So I think for the fans, AI has never been, there's never been a technology as empowering for fans as AI, right? Because we have gone from a very passive approach to the teams, like you look at your teams and heroes from down below. But with the growth of technology, this relationship has changed. And now we are at the stage where fans can actually almost be stakeholders in their teams and athletes. They own a piece of the myth, and they can also help shape it, which is quite phenomenal, right? And if you think about it, depending on where the sport is happening, how close it is to fans, opportunities are massive. So if you have a sport where fans can rarely access the actual live event, like F1,
Yes.
you need to bring that experience to the fans, and AI can really help them to live in their own living room the race. If you have other sports that have temples where they celebrate the ride, like stadiums, you want to make those stadiums smart with AI and enhance the fan experience there. And in between, you have the pre-event, the post-event, where content is never enough for fans. So they want to know more, and they want to know more personalized insights. And this is what AI can really bring to them. You can listen to your own favorite commentator talking to you about the analysis of a game, personalized with your own insights, with the way you like to hear from it. So it's never been easier to access the mythology, which sport is based on, like in the AI era.
Exactly, and as I said in my introduction, we move from the sport model being less like ESPN and more like Spotify, with that idea of curation. And then one of the other things that we picked up on, and I think you can speak to, is this idea of collaboration. And in fact, you've got an example right here from Dubai with the Emirates Helmetverse project. Can you tell us a little about that?
Oh, that was a incredibly good experience. So we thought with Team Emirates, the helmet is really almost a symbol of the riders, more than the jerseys for the soccer players. So we wanted to use that helmet as a canvas for fans to express their love for the game, their love for the rides, the peloton. And so we started designing with generative AI a very special helmet for Team Emirates that was worn in Tour de France Stage 3. And then we opened up to every single fan in the world the possibility to design another helmet through a very, very bespoke AI tool platform called helmetverse.ai, where anyone, irrespectively of their skills in designing, could actually, in minutes, design a beautifully looking helmet. And if you go to the platform and look at the fan response, has been overwhelming. Some of the helmets, you would want to see them in real life because they're so good. And this has never happened before. It was only a few people with creative capabilities could access that level. But now it's literally everyone. So it's a democratization of beauty, first. And second, this is a way for teams to have a much stricter collaboration with fans, to the point of showing it on their most sacred items, the jerseys.
To expand their audiences as well and their reach. Right?
Massively, right? The Helmetverse was participation from all around the world, literally. Well, tens of thousands of participants.
I'm very interested to learn, especially for the audience we've got here, how does that, do you think, start to translate beyond the world of sport into the wider realms of business, this notion of personalized engagement? What can we take away from that?
I would say that you need to actually embrace AI to really understand the potential. It's an exponential curve. More people will start using it like this, more people will realize the impact, more people will participate to the life of their favorite brands. And it goes across fashion, luxury, technology, FMCG. There is no brand that can ignore the power of AI in the hands of their consumers or fans.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well, look, we've got a little bit of time to look at one of the other key areas from our report, which focused on operational transformation and excellence. And whilst it might not always seem to be as exciting as some of those front-facing elements around in-sport engagement and in-stadium engagement, critically, it's driving success within our organization. So, Giacomo, you know, something that the report was able to uncover was the fact that 2/3 of senior sports executives surveyed said that their organizations didn't yet have an AI strategy. I don't think that's exclusive to sport, by the way. And yet the use of AI across the sports ecosystem is growing rapidly. So why do you think this is important for us to highlight, and what do organizations need to consider?
Yeah, first of all, you're absolutely right saying that it's not exclusive to sport. There was another session before this one where they showed very similar data, actually, across other industries. Well, one of the reasons you mentioned it, it's lack of proper AI strategy within the organization. And that means essentially running pilots in isolation, not having very well-defined KPIs. It also means trying to apply AI horizontally across the organization rather than vertically to try to transform entire processes or functions. The second issue is obviously a resistance to change. You need to take people on board with you on this journey. You can't expect just to enforce a technology on them. They need to upskill and they need to start to embrace it, as Alex said. And then the third element is probably also a lack of AI talent across organizations, and especially in sports organizations, right? There's a need to bring on board AI champions that can then evangelize the use of AI across the organization.
And if I can add to this, if you take a standard organization, it's going to be a bit more difficult for top-tier organization to change because they are used already to excellence. So the resistance to change is stronger.
Yes.
That's why it's a democratizing force, because we'll give opportunities to challengers to actually up their antes and upskill their game in order to reach the top. So I'm expecting the middle tier to bring more change, and the upper tier to have to realize that they need to up their game as well.
I think that's absolutely right. And one of the key things that our report, I think, uncovered for G42 was this notion of leveling up and this ability that AI is going to have as a technology to level up, both in sport and I think across other industry sectors. I'd like to round off by going back to really the key role that maybe sport plays for so many of us in our lives. And Dawn, I'd like to come to you first on this. You know, sport is a deeply human experience, and it's something that unites us as individuals. Do you think AI throws up challenges that might actually stop that unification, that idea of human engagement and unity? Or do you maybe think that actually AI is going to encourage us to get more into sport?
I think like with any new technology, there's going to be growing pains. What I can say is, right now, speaking to athletes, there's a bit of an unknown question mark when it comes to AI in sports. Are people like, is it going to replace athletes? How can I work with this? And I think, you know, as I was talking about with you just before, like communications about AI and the applications for it. And because that's the thing, athletes, you know, for me personally, I'm a cyclist and I want to get away from technology. I don't want to think about technology when I'm riding, besides what I'm wearing and what's going on at that moment. And I think a lot of athletes are thinking, yeah, how can I use this? I was asking a pro triathlete friend of mine, I was like, how can AI help you? She's like, write my social media captions. So there's a bit of a communications, I think, opportunity there when it comes to AI and learning more about it as well from an athlete's point of view, but how can they incorporate it into their lives, and how can teams as well incorporate it?
Yeah, but I think, you know, we're seeing some great examples in the report of how AI is actually enabling athletes to perform better, to train better, and to rest better. If I come to you though, Giacomo, in terms of your relationship to sport, what is it that you're enjoying with regards to sport and technology and where the two are intersecting?
I just got my Whoop 4 days ago, still tracking some of my different metrics, so I'll probably be able to give you an answer in a few days. But I'm sure it's going to help me perform better at work and hopefully perform better in sports as well.
And Alex, what about you in terms of that connection between sport and brand experience and technology? What's really exciting you and that you're seeing in the future?
I think what could really be interesting is getting closer to athletes. Even the athletes that are not super famous, they are exceptional human beings. As you said before, athletes are exceptional human beings. They do something that others can't. and getting to know them more granularly at a much deeper level than just the few names that we know as stars would be a massive way for fans to love the sports even more.
Yeah, so true. And as we know, as many athletes globally trying to enter the professional field still struggle to actually earn enough from their sport to make a living from it. I think what the report starts to look at is how AI unlocks the potential both for the industry, for sporting organizations, but also for sportsmen and women themselves to actually perform better and to exceed their targets and to achieve new goals in the area of sport. Well, listen, thank you all very much indeed. The report is now available for you to download and to read in more depth, and to think about the applications not just for sport, but also across your own industry. So please do, with the compliments of G42, take a look at the report, and thank you very much indeed for joining us today. And we are out of time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.